A good novent, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the Shloshim evening in New York. We're having our own tonight in our shul here in Johannesburg, South Africa. But it's my privilege to say a few words to you in New York. I thought that I would focus on a few lines from the inscription on the matzeva of my mother, Areni Kaporas Mishkova, and maybe just touch on some of the choice lines that really encapsulate and capture her personality, her extraordinary contribution to all of us, to our family, our families, and to the community and all who had the privilege to know her and to love her as we did. So there is a line in the beginning that describes my mother as Akeres Beisa V'Tiferes Mishpachta. Akeres Habayis we're all familiar with, the pillar of her home. I can think of no woman who was more a pillar of her home than my mother was of hers and ours. V'Tiferes Mishpachta, and the beauty, the glory of her whole family. My mother's home was the hub, the central core, where the entire family would come to meet, would revolve. Boba's kitchen was the hub where we would all meet, where everybody would come. Everybody would feel not only welcome, but at home, and as this was the family center. She was an anchor. She was the rock of our family. She kept it all together, and it's our prayer and hope that in Mirz Hashem in the years ahead, that same unity and togetherness will be able to continue to prevail even after her physical absence. Of course, in giving her name, the tradition is Bas Rabbi Yochanan, Olav Shalom. Can't tell you how many people during Shiva came to say more or less the words that sie is given the Tate Zatochte, meaning that she had Rabbi Yochanan's wisdom and sharp wit, which those of us who knew her knew was her hallmark. And she used it effectively. She used it not only to come up with a sharp retort and to score points, touche, but she used wisdom to counsel people. And again, during Shiva, dozens and dozens of people came to tell us how they benefited from her wise counsel, which will appear in a moment in another line in the Matzeva. But that wisdom was not something which she kept for herself, she shared. And the sharpness and the wit up to the very, very end, up to just before Rosh Hashanah, and even after Rosh Hashanah, there was even a line of wit in her sickbed. As ill and as schwach as she was, she came up with one of her classics as well, and those who were there will remember what I'm referring to. And of course the Gemach, and she stood at her late father's side, and our father, Yibodel L'chaim, Tate Zol Gesund und Stark sein, stood at his side, and in recent years pretty much single-handedly managed the affairs of the Gemilas Chesed. And surely this is a schus that will stand her in good stead, Lo'elam. And it is our hope as a family that Mirz Hashem, the next generation, will be able to rebuild and strengthen and resuscitate the Gemach that was so prominent for so many years, that merited such chavivas by the Rebbe, that he gave time at the Rebbe's Verbrengen to announce the Gemach, to ask the Zayde and Yibodel L'chaim, the Tate Zol Gesund sein, to announce it and to say L'chaim. Shabbos Parshas Mishpatim, and Lava Malka, and sending a check, and letters for so many years. So surely it is only the right thing that we should all get together in Yitz Hashem and try to strengthen the Gemach once again, that it can be a proud Moisid in the Rebbe Shchuna in Yitz Hashem. Beisa Posuach L'Revocha, her home was open. We read of Parshas Vayera yesterday, we read of Avram's open home. Her home was truly open. She hosted everybody, certainly not limited to friends and family. How many of her nieces and nephews lived with us long term, for weeks, months, and often for years? How many people who were not family, who became family and stayed with her for weeks, months, and yes, even years, whether it was in the attic on Crown Street or at 603. And she had Chassidim v'Anshe Maisa, Chassidim of the caliber of Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman and Reb Avram Parish, who would stay in the house, and it was my honor and privilege to give up my bed to those distinguished luminaries and sleep on the couch. But it wasn't only prominent people who she hosted, and it wasn't only in recent times. I remember as a child having lonely individuals. I remember one particular gentleman who was a regular guest on Shabbos and who really was again part of the furniture. And of course in recent years, a lonely woman who would often be by her Friday nights. Not prominent people necessarily, people who were lonely and perhaps fallen on difficult times. So her hospitality, her chesed extended the full spectrum, not only to people for whom it was an honor for her to host, but for people for whom it was a great honor for them to be hosted by her. And then we move on, and that line I referred to, Atzosa Emuno Midosa Emes, which is a takeoff from the Machzer, where we said of the Rebishter, Atzosa Emuno Pulose Emes. But I think with a little bit of editorial license, we could apply it to my mother. Atzosa Emuno, her eitzah, her counsel, her wisdom, her advice was faithful, was always seeking the best for the person who was the beneficiary of her wisdom. Midosa Emes, her way was truth. She told it like it was. That too was her hallmark. She didn't mince words. She told you straight, and whether it was easy to swallow or not, she said what had to be said. And it was amazing how people appreciated that and thanked her. There's a fellow in Johannesburg who tells me whenever he was in Crown Heights, he would always go to visit my mother because he needed to get told off once in a while, and she could do it well. And he appreciated and valued it because he knew he needed it. And if I spoke to my congregants the way my mother spoke to many, I'd probably lose half my membership, but she got away with it because there was no malice, there was pure love, pure emes, honesty, genuineness, and she really wanted the best for that individual. And therefore she told him the truth that he or she needed to hear. And so, Atzosa Emuna Midosa Emes. I'm not going to go through every line of the Matzeva, but I think these are the points that I wanted to touch upon. We are the beneficiaries of her legacy. We have a lot to live up to. We have learned much of what we are from her, and it's my hope and prayer that we can continue to emulate her example and continue to give her nachas on high. Soll sie sein a gute Betterin for our father, for her children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, dear friends, family, and Klal Yisrael. Amen.